They ripped my shirt, pulled my hair. I mean, it was a Beatles thing. You can't imagine what it was really like unless you were absolutely there. It was crazy, crazy. After that movie, I had to show my butt in every film that there was after that, or run around in that loincloth. Yeah, I did get sexualized, absolutely, and I liked it. It's Blue Lagoon's 45th anniversary, and he wanted to celebrate that in Playgirl, and it was also my 43rd, I think it was my 43rd year that I did a cover and a layout in Playgirl. He hit me up and he said, no, we want to do another cover and we want to do another layout. And I said, you do know how old I am, right? Good morning, good morning.
Well, hello, Christopher Atkins. It's always a joy to see you, my dear friend.
Mr. Bennett, you're the best. I love you. What are you doing? Good to see you.
Oh, well, what am I doing? Hang on, it's about what you're doing. You are a Playgirl cover boy, the July issue, and you've gone absolutely viral with this. How in the dickens did that happen?
It's quite a surprise. Well, Luca over there at Playgirl hit me up on Instagram, and I wasn't sure if it was a real thing because I didn't know Playgirl was even around anymore. And I just sort of felt it out, and sure enough, the guy was for real, and it's Blue Lagoon's 45th anniversary, and he wanted to celebrate that in Playgirl, and it was also my 43rd, I think it was my 43rd year that I did a cover and a layout in Playgirl. And he hit me up and he said, no, we want to do another cover and we want to do another layout. And I said, you do know how old I am, right? And he goes, yeah, no. It's not like that. He said, we'd like to do this real nice layout. So I still wasn't so sure about what he was talking about. And then I get a call from my dear friend, Greg Gorman, who's probably one of the top 3 photographers on the planet. And I've known since I was 18 years old in the business. And he said, hey, are we going to do this? And I went, whoa, wait a second. Are you going to do this? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm going to do this. They asked me if I would do it. And I said, yes. And he said, Chris, they've asked me for years and years and years to do it. And I've never done a Playgirl thing other than the one that we did 43 years ago. So they wanted to redo it. But what was even more flattering about the whole thing was that they wanted to do, usually, as you know, it's when they catch up with a celebrity, it's cooking, it's walking the dog, it's fishing, it's walking on the beach, something like that. And they wanted to do a really nice gallery type art pieces layout in the magazine. And they put like 13 pictures. I mean, I was blown away, more than flattered that they did such an amazing job. So I can't thank Luca at Playgirl, and I can't thank Playgirl enough. And it was wonderful. They did this video, and he emailed me saying the video went viral on TikTok. And I don't know what that means, but I think it's a good thing.
Of course, the old saying was, I only buy those magazines for the stories. But the story is really nice too. It's got substance and it really kind of gets to the meat of what you're about, and certainly reflecting on the Blue Lagoon 45 years down the track.
Yeah, they did a spectacular job. I don't think there's been a tribute or any write-up or follow-up or anything on the Blue Lagoon and me or us at all as well as he did that. I mean, and it keeps coming out. I just got another thing today that said reply or add to your whatever it is on Instagram, and I always click yes, and it just keeps going. But yeah, he did a phenomenal job, and then they backed it up with all the old pictures and everything from Blue Lagoon, and it was spectacular. It was quite an honor.
Those things can go several ways, can't they? It can be very exploitative, but in this case, it was just a really homage to the movie, the cultural impact of that movie, and certainly to you. And I mean, that then leaves a lot of people thinking, wow, 45 years since the Blue Lagoon came out, 1980, and you were what, 17 or 18 at the time, weren't you, when you got that incredible break?
Yeah, I was 18 years old. But it's funny because I just got this just today. I got this text that came in, and I've got a couple of people now that have sent it in from the Daily Mail. I don't know if you know the Daily Mail, but
Yes,
it's a
we do.
magazine. And they took pictures of me filling up my crappy car at the gas station down here in flip-flops and a freaking cut off shirt, and they only use the here I have this beautiful Playgirl layout, and then the Daily Mail comes out with this crap pictures. Why do they only use the most awful moment? And you know they're going, "Gee, gee, gee, gee." So they're taking like 40 of them, but they have to pick the one that makes you look 45 years later.
I mean, you must remember all that back in the days of the National Enquirer, picking the worst photos of even the most beautiful, amazing people. So, you know what? The Daily Mail's cottoned on. Now that you're back in the headlines again, they're after you. So, no more flip flops at gas stations, please.
I know. This is what I said to my friend. I go, I'm always barefoot. I'm hardly dressed for that matter.
But I mean, you think
Well,
about
it's
those
flattered.
days when you were, by virtue of the Blue Lagoon, the hottest hunk in Hollywood. People can't even imagine what it must be like to be at the epicenter of such a hurricane of attention.
Look, I was just a kid from Rye, New York, who was teaching sailing to little kids whose dreams and aspirations were to play professional baseball. And that was it. And then I had all of these knee operations, and the sports just wiped me out as a kid when I was younger. And then I was going to go into sports medicine, but my whole family are doctors. And that's another, I'm sidetracking here, but so I'm coming from that, and that was my focus. And I go get into modeling at the Ford Modeling Agency, and the next thing I know is I auditioned for this movie. Never in a million years would I've ever thought, because I've never acted before, but I never would have thought that I would get picked. And I was one of 4,000 kids who auditioned for the film. And for some reason, yeah, I got picked. So not only did I really not know what I was doing when they shipped me off on this island, a deserted island for 4.5 months, and they had to teach me how to hit a mark and how to act or react, all of that. I never did that before. When that movie came out, Randall Kleiser, the director, called me up. He said, "Hey, do you want to go with me to go look at the lines at the theater?" And they made a big deal about this movie. Columbia Pictures, it was one of the last of the old school premieres where they closed Hollywood Boulevard off and they had the carpet down and limo after limo came and they had fire eaters and pig roasters and all sorts of things in the parking lot. It was a big, big premiere, big deal. So we went, he picked me up and we went to go look at the lines. And here was this giant statue, cardboard cutout of Brooke and I that was 25 feet tall out in front. And Craig, the line went all the way around the building and down the block. It was a Star Wars line. So from that moment to for years after, there was not a place I could go on this planet that I wasn't recognized. I wasn't stopped. I had to have bodyguards. I literally was in a mall. I had hundreds. This happened twice where they ripped my shirt, pulled my hair. I mean, it was a Beatles thing. It was nothing. I mean, describing it now, you can't imagine what it was really like unless you were absolutely there. It was crazy, crazy.
In a previous conversation we had, you told me that the PR people even suggested to you that you don't talk about who you might be dating because it was all about conjuring the fantasies in your fans and you didn't want to be seen as being a heartbreaker. And it was all about that kind of, sexual expectation, really, wasn't it?
Well, they felt that it was a more of a chick flick. And so, and I, like I said before, I had no idea what to do, how to do it, or what I was doing. And so I had to be coached and brought along. I mean, and this, like you said, was a monster Columbia Pictures PR machine. They flew me for nearly 2 years all the way around the globe. And I can't tell you how many cities. And breakfast, lunch, and dinner, lines of magazines and interviewers, and one after the other. After it was crazy, and I had to learn all these things. And one of the things that, yes, they did teach me was that to be approachable, in the sense that I'm not. I'm single. I'm not locked down, and that I don't have a girlfriend. I'm out there looking, so that every fantasy in the world could be real, that we could get together, type of thing, all over the world. And actually, it was very romantic. It was kind of beautiful in a sense. So, but yep, that was true.
You beat out over 4,000 people to that particular role. I read somewhere, tell me if this is true, that Willie Ames actually got that role but passed on it because he was just not up for the nudity that was required.
Yeah, I believe that is a true story. And I got to know Willie after. He's this really terrific kid. I mean, terrific guy, really, really nice guy. And I believe that's true. And then he ended up doing Phoebe Cates' one out in the desert, which was very, very similar, almost a complete ripoff of Blue Lagoon. I think even Columbia Pictures went into a lawsuit over that. But yeah, so I believe that's a true story. But that was a big deal for the movie, was nudity. And when he approached me about how I felt being naked, I had no idea, because I never really did any social. But I'm just one of these guys that's kind of an adventurer. My philosophy in life is, he with the most stories wins, because if you have stories, you've lived a life and you've had adventure. And that's what it's all about. So,
Brooke Shields has lamented having been sexualized almost through her entire showbiz life. So, I mean, how does that affect you? Because you were definitely sexualized, even if the focus seems never to be on men being sexualized, but always on women being sexualized.
no, I got to ask that question, especially after Brooks' documentary she did. And she was very kind about Blue Lagoon. But because yes, after that movie, I had to show my butt in every film that there was after that, or run around in that loincloth, or if you remember, every movie after that, they had to curl my hair, because the director, Randall Kleiser, who directed Grease and the Blue Lagoon, he always saw the character in Richard in Blue Lagoon, a Greek Adonis and curly hair. So they kept curling my hair. So after that movie, they kept curling my hair. And I was like, I don't have curly hair. But I did get asked that question a lot. And I always said, yeah, I did get sexualized. Absolutely. And I liked it.
I think your mum lent you an old wig to go to the audition in. Is that right?
I think she pulled something out of the bottom of the closet under a bunch of shoes for one of the last auditions. And I kept saying, aren't you supposed to be shooting this film by now? Because I auditioned 2 months earlier. And I can't tell you, I was at the Columbia Pictures building, and there was miles of kids all sitting on the floor reading their sides that they had to go in and do the tape. I didn't know any different. And I was just thinking to myself, well, this is kind of cool, because when the movie comes out, I can tell all my friends, oh, I auditioned for that movie. I read those lines. But when I went, they disappeared, and then they came back literally like 2 months later. And at this point in time, I was sailing and doing all that, and I had a nice tan and all, and that made a difference. I was also a scuba diver, which also added to my checklist for them, because there was a lot, obviously, water scenes and holding your breath water scenes. And so when I came back in, it was with Julie Warner, and she was going to get the part and she was in Doc Hollywood in a lot of movies, and she would have gotten the part if Brooke didn't do it. And he calls me up and he says, look, we want to see you again. I'm like, well, aren't you supposed to be shooting this picture? Well, we haven't found the right person yet, but we'd like to see you again. Can you bring in a wig? Oh, sure. Everybody's got a wig hanging around in their drawer. What are you talking about? And so I asked mom, she's blonde, and I said, do you happen to have, and sure enough, like I said, down under her shoes, just mushed on the floor, so was some ratty old thing that she had. And I walked into New York City with this thing and they did whatever they wanted to, do to make the curly thing look. I mean, he really, really was detailed about it. So yes, that is a true story. And that's how it all happened.
And then, of course, you see hair became your cross to bear because when the cameras finally started turning, and there you are in Fiji, they had to perm your hair, didn't they, to get that Adonis-y tousled look?
Well, yeah, well, but the problem that they had was the humidity and the sun and the salt air constantly had the curls falling down. So if you watch the movie, you'll see sometimes they're a little tighter, sometimes they're a little looser, and
Yeah.
it was just as the hair's growing. I mean, we were there for 4.5 months. I was literally living in a tent. No movie was ever made like that. No movie will ever be made like that. I mean, you'll never find an actor who's going to live in a tent for 4.5 months. Where is that going to happen? But back then, this was a deserted island. There was nothing there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm all in. This is going to be fun.
I mean, that was your first acting outing, and there you are copping a Golden Globe nomination. It was one hell of a rocket ride, wasn't it, from that point forward?
Yeah, it went from 0 to 90 or 0 to 100 pretty quick. Yeah. And there was an interesting time though. Once the movie was over. So I was supposed to go to Denison University in Ohio after high school because this was right after high school. And so I went on the island. I was supposed to be back in time to go to college, but I wasn't. So I deferred. And I just never ended up. I Before you know it, there was this time where we filmed the picture. I came home, all my friends were gone. They were all at college. It was just dead quiet. Literally, Craig, I was sitting there thinking, did I just do that? Was that real? And you can't you could tell people, but there's nothing to show. There's Right? So it was a really bizarre time for many men. Nowadays, everything's digital, so they do this stuff now, but that's all film, and it was shot on 70 millimeter, so it was big time on the screen. But it was an awkward time there, and I didn't know, and there was nobody around. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. It was really strange, and then all of a sudden looping, and all of a sudden the PR machine, and they start talking to me about interviews, and then before you know it, things start happening where they're flying out to California, and then it picked up this momentum, and just like you said, once that film came out, it was all over the world, beyond. I mean, just it corners you would never expect anybody to recognize me.
The Blue Lagoon was shot on Turtle Island, which now, of course, is this lavish five-star extravaganza resort. But back then, it was nothing. And is this right? You were sleeping in tents.
Right. And they gave us a break, a little more than midway, I believe, to go to Nandi or Vanuatu, whatever the main city was, for about 3 or 4 days, just to see civilization. Because I don't think there was one airplane other than the mail plane that we saw the entire time we were there. So I'm telling you, it was as a matter of fact, there was no water on the island, and the crew happened to find water. So the guy who owned the island, and he was kind of a crazy guy, and you can imagine owning an island with nothing on it. But it's so crazy that if you if you ever see the movie again, in the very beginning of the movie, the boat catches on fire and it's
Yes.
going to blow up because there was gunpowder in the hold. So everybody's trying to get off this ship. And the captain of the ship gets in the lifeboat, and this one guy with a goatee and a sailor stripe black and white shirt, I believe, is trying to get into the lifeboat, and the and the captain goes, "No, no, no, there's no more room," and pulls the cord, and the lifeboat drops into the water. Well, the guy in the striped shirt that they left on the burning boat was the owner of the island.
Here is something else I didn't know. Leo McKern, of course, the wonderful late great Aussie actor who did so much on British television, he played Paddy Button, and he had a glass eye that he would take out and amuse you all with.
The most famous time that happened was when the girl and the boy who played us younger, the young kids, go over because they see him laying on the little island, Patty's Island, and they see him laying there on the beach. And they go, oh, and the little girl makes a little thing to put on his head. And they go over there. Well, the problem that they had was Glenn, the boy, kept laughing every time because they'd have to turn him over and see him dead. And they wanted this reaction. And he couldn't, Randall couldn't get the reaction. So they told him to take out his eye. And so when they rolled him over, his eye was open and there was an eye stump or whatever was in there. And the kid to get a reaction. And so they roll him over and he's got this eye open. There's one real one and there's nothing in the other one. And what does it do? The kid just starts losing it and laughing hysterically. So they went for the crab. They put the crab in the guy's mouth and the crab crawls out and the kid gave some sort of like whatever. And that was good enough.
Oh my gosh.
Now, you and Brooke reunited on Suddenly Susan back in 1999. So, you keep in touch from time to time by email or whenever it's required that you get together, don't you?
Yeah, I'll text her now and then, see how she's doing, or I'll run into somebody. So, for instance, a fun story was I'm in Connecticut and I was fishing on a bridge out here, and it's a sort of in the by a water wheel and stuff. A real pretty little area. And I was fishing there, and this car stopped, and this woman asked for directions. And I said, "Look, I'm brand new here. Basically, I don't know too much." And then she looks at me and she goes, "Chris." And I go, "Yeah." I'm thinking, oh, she recognizes me, this woman. And I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And she goes, "The Blue Lagoon, Chris?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." And she goes, "It's Claudia." And then all of a sudden, there was Claudia. Well, this was Claudia Black, who started the children's division at the Ford Modeling Agency with Brooke Shields.
Ah,
And so the Ford Modeling Agency was what children's division was started with Brooke. When I was just getting into modeling through this lady that I was teaching, selling a kid to her kids, sent pictures in. And so it set me up to go to the men's division and meet Joey Hunter, who ran the men's division there at Ford. And so I got lost and I ended up in the women's division, and I was pretty happy there watching all these models walking by. And this woman looks around the corner and it was Claudia. And she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I've got a meeting with Joe Hunter." And she said, "Well, he's up on the third floor." She said, "But you look too young to be in the men's division. When you're done with him, come back and see me." I said, "Oh, okay." So I went up and talked to him, came back down, talked with Claudia, and Claudia says, back then they were called go-sees. And she said, "Hey, if you're interested, I've got a voucher book and I've got a go-see that you can go on right now if you'd like over at JCPenney." I said, "Oh, sure. What do I know?" Right. So I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I walk over to JCPenney. I go in and I do test shots with Lori Loughlin. So Lori Loughlin and I knew all of these Phoebe Cates, Lori Loughlin, Lisa Ann Falk, Brooke, all of these kids, all of us who were in New York, all modeling together when we were just little kids. I mean, they were little kids; they were like 12 years old and stuff back then. But it was really interesting. It was really fun, that whole gang. So here I was running into Claudia after 40 some odd years, and she goes, "All I remember is sending you and Brooke packages." And I said, "Oh my God, Claudia, it's so good to see you." So I text Brooke and I say, "Hey, you'll never guess, I ran into Claudia Black." So things like that. Yep, we'll keep in touch.
And we began our conversation talking about the fact that you're the July cover boy for Playgirl Magazine. You did your first Playgirl, and that was 1982. Who was that beautiful blonde model that was kind of draped over you?
That was Donna Rupert. I mean, she was a stunningly beautiful girl. I mean, stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
I was ready to propose right then and there.
So you do the Playgirl, then you come to Australia and you make this fun movie that is now such a cult classic. I think they have midnight screenings of it all over the place, called The Pirate Movie. What are your memories of your trip to Australia to make that extraordinary picture?
To set the stage, Australia to me was the last of the Wild West. It was one of the most exciting, magical places for me as a kid. And when we did Blue Lagoon, it was all Australian crew.
Mm.
And they were so amazing. That film would have never been the same if it wasn't for them. Just bar none. You couldn't do the things that crew did. So when I got to Australia, my eyes were just wide as can be because I was so excited to be in Australia. It was, for some reason in my mind, Australia was the most exciting, and it still is to me, the most exciting place on the planet. And then when I got to know everybody and they would send me up and they would or always had sayings and having a good time, and it was just awesome. And when I got to go there to shoot the movie, I was there for 6 months because they had a director and they changed directors, and so things happened, and I was there for a really long, long time. And it was wonderful. And I still to this day, as you know, I was married to Lynn for nearly 20 years or 20 years. So, and she was an Australian Playmate of the Year. Beautiful lady, really fun. We had two wonderful kids, and I always considered Australia my second home. And I would actually now, at this age, I would really like to come back and do more projects in Australia. Maybe get a residency there would be wonderful. I mean, that's how much I really adore Australia. So hopefully I'll be able to get back and do that again. But the pirate movie was not as much of a box office success. Now you got to understand, I don't sing. Thank God for machines because they can make a dog sing. So I can't sing, but I had to take singing. I had to take fencing lessons and dancing lessons. We had to do all this dancing. Well, my dancing, if you ever watch the movie, is so good. They always put me in the back with the pirates, and I'm the star of the movie. I do have a gold album because my song went gold in Australia, which was really, so exciting. And I tease with my kids every time I sing happy birthday, and their ears are bleeding. And then I go, hey, 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 I have a gold album. No, Dad, no. But the pirate movie didn't do as well in the box office, but my God, it was fascinating. Craig, you have no idea when you say cult classic. I literally did a video for some people to show before one of those midnight screams in Germany to say hi to everybody and thank you for watching the pirate movie. And I mean, it became this I think I get more pirate movie these days than Blue Lagoon.
And I'd forgotten just how many great Aussie stars were in there. I mean, you and I were chatting on the phone one day, and in my car was Maggie Kirkpatrick, and I'd forgotten that you and Maggie had been in that movie together. So I passed you on to Maggie, and you had a great old phone catch up about those crazy 80s. She nearly drowned, I think, in Sydney Harbour in one screen. It was kind of like the Wild West making that movie, wasn't it?
It was very physical. Let me tell you something. And one of the funniest things, I probably shouldn't say this because everybody's going to get in trouble, but one of the great things is we had to do this sword fighting scene on this area on top of the castle at Werribee Park, right? And me and Ted Hamilton had this sword fight. Well, there was a bunch of guys with a mat, the stunt guys, all with a mat, and they're 60 feet down below going, we got you, don't worry about it, we got you. That's how they did it. That's how they did it back then, but only in Australia. Those guys were awesome, man. They were, and you know something, the greatest part about it is, and I'm sure if you talk to other actors that you do on your show, that it's very rare that you really keep in touch with people that you work with because you do so many things and it's an intense time at the time. You get very, very close, and everybody goes on their separate ways and have their lives. And a lot of times I don't remember, but the pirate movie and the Blue Lagoon, when people get together that worked on that, it's hugs and kisses and old time week, where they just stories and stories and laughter. And I mean, everybody just is so close. And those are really the only two films besides Dallas that when I see these people, everybody is just bonkers for each other. And I've done over 100 different pictures in television.
Well, speaking of Dallas, of course, you were Peter Richards, J.R. Ewing's camp counselor. What was Larry Hagman really like to work with?
I was a huge I Dream of Jeannie fan when I was a kid. That was a big deal. So I knew Larry Hagman from that. And I got cast on Dallas, and I had to go into the stage for a photo shoot, and they had me bring clothes. I had 50 pounds of clothes on hangers that I'm carrying down the hall. And as I'm walking down the hall, here comes Larry Hagman, and he comes up and he says, "Hey, welcome to the show. Let me take that for you. Here, I'll show you where to go." Larry Hagman took my 50 pounds of clothes and carried my clothes for me into my dressing room, hung them up, welcomed me, and that's the kind of guy he was. And yeah, he did drink some champagne on the set, but he also didn't like smokers, and he had a pith helmet with a fan in it, so it would blow the smoke right back in your face if you were anywhere near. And he wouldn't work on a set on the sound stage if anybody had been smoking on the sound stage. I never had a problem with him. He was always a funny. I mean, they were all practical jokers on that set. They were just so much fun. They were really good people.
Speaking of practical jokes, the wonderful Linda Gray, of course, her character Sue Ellen, who was married to Larry Hagman's J.R. Ewing, and you and Sue Ellen, your character and Sue Ellen, become lovers. And she did something to you when it was time for your first on-screen kiss, didn't she?
We are culminating our relationship on Dallas, the TV series. Now, she's the first cougar, and you have no idea all the fan base that was going crazy that this young guy was chasing her and she was giving into it. Excuse me. Was absolutely over the top insane. So here comes the very big kiss, the moment where it all happens. And it's at this little pond, and it's on this dock out over the water, and everybody's standing around, the cast and crew, they're all standing around. Usually everybody goes home. They're all standing around. And so I go, and they could say action, and we go to do the scene, and we do this big, beautiful kiss on this dock, right? And they say, cut, and break apart. And she looks at me, she says, "So how was it?" And I'm thinking, that's a weird question. What am I supposed to say to that? It stunk. Let's do it again. You know, I mean, she was awesome, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm going, yeah, well, and then all of a sudden my lips go completely numb. And she had taken that stuff that they put at the dentist, where they put it on your gums before they stick the needle in to numb it. So she put all this numbing juice all over her lips, did this big kiss, our big moment on screen. And I'm going, I'm ready, but what the fuck was in my lips? Okay, I can't talk. And everybody's laughing. They think this is the funniest thing. And that's what you have to deal with when you work on Dallas.
It was an absolute juggernaut, TV-wise, in the 80s. What was it like to work on a show that just had such this immeasurable following and all over the world? It was massive.
A couple of things. One, I was on tour with Blue Lagoon, and I believe I was in South Africa. And we went out to go to dinner one night, and it was the night of Who Shot JR on TV. Craig, there was not a restaurant to be found. There was nobody in the streets. There was nobody in the restaurants. Everything was empty. That's how big it was. And when we did find a restaurant, they were in the back. You could see them watching the TV. The last thing they wanted was customers. It was wild. So it was years later that I went on the show, and it was so big that they only gave you the script a week ahead of time, and you had to seal it with lock and key. I mean, there were people that were willing to pay lots and lots of money to know what the next episode was going to be. That's how crazy it was. So a lot of the time we would rehearse right then and there with stuff that we were just getting.
Coming up, you're reuniting at South Fort Ranch with some of the cast for a great big weekend fan event. You must be really excited by that because it was one of those shows where everybody got on and became great friends.
Yeah, it really was. And I was only on for a season. I was supposed to sign for 2 seasons, but I was going to do a play on Broadway with Gina Lollobrigida, The Rose Tattoo. And unfortunately, the producer died, so it didn't happen. But because of that, usually you sign more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was able to get away with just signing for one. But that one season was so big and so broad. I mean, I was in the Bahamas walking through a casino in the Bahamas, and I could see this woman across the room, and she comes straight up at me, this old woman, and she wags her finger in my face saying, "You're too young for her." Oh, whoa, okay.
You were having an affair with J.R. Ewing's wife, Sue Ellen, your character, not you personally. Obviously, J.R. was not thrilled about this particular scandal.
Yeah, no, they planted some drugs on me, and I was going to go to jail forever or leave town now. So yeah, no, JR was. Oh, we had a huge brawl. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I even forgot about it, and they showed it the last time, but it was a massive brawl in the oil barons' ball. I mean, they really went all out with some of these storylines, and it was really fun. And yeah, like you said, Linda's still a dear friend. And Charlene, I see Charlene, I text her every once in a while. She's awesome. And then Cherie Wilson. And I mean, just all of the cast just get along. They're so friendly. They're really nice. And yes, if you're a huge Dallas fan, I mean, there's still tickets to be had. We're going to South Fork in Dallas. We'll be there the 8th, 9th, and 10th. So, and it's all of us, whoever's still around on the cast of Dallas, Joan Van Ark, everybody's going to be there. And it's a really fun, wonderful time.
You talked about the fact that you married an Aussie, Lynn, and you have 2 kids, but this might seem insane. Chris Atkins is also a granddad these days, aren't you?
Wait, what? I couldn't hear you.
You
know, I heard you. Yes, I'm a grandfather of 3 boys, 3 great, fun grandkids.
And you're a great granddad too. When I say great, not a great granddad.
Yeah, don't push it.
But you're a fantastic granddad because you get really involved in their lives and you take them hiking and fishing and doing all those terrific outdoorsy things.
Yeah, that's the most fun is to mess with, and I get to mess with my kids through my grandkids, which is even better. So for instance, on April Fool's Day, this last April Fool's Day, I called my oldest grandson who just turned 12, and I said, "Look, I'm sending you something. You'll get it. You'll understand it when you get it. But you guys have to really play it up because there's an upstairs and a downstairs. And so the kids are all upstairs. So I said, you got to really play it up." And I said, and then you got to go downstairs and shock your parents. And so what I did was I sent an arrow through the head and scissors in the head. And so the little one, he's got scissors sticking out of his head, and the older one has an arrow going through his head. And I get this text message from their mom with a picture of the 2 of them pointing to each other like this. And she goes, "What the hell?" And then to top it off, I sent them harmonicas. And I get a text from my son, and it said, "Effing harmonicas," because they don't have batteries. They never run out. So the kids are going, "Her."
Next time, send them recorders, Chris. I mean, that will send people dirtling to the end of their life, won't it?
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about, well, you know, the Golden Globe nomination for your very first movie, The Blue Lagoon, and just how you take things in your stride. No matter what comes your way, you're always smiling. And I remember when Halle Berry won a Razzie Award. I think she was the first person in history to actually turn up and collect the award. Well, I mean, you're one up on Halle Berry because you got 2 Razzie Awards, didn't you?
I've never received them, Craig.
What?
I've never received. Hey, you know, Razzies, if you're out there, I'd like if I win something, come on, send it. I've never seen it. So I don't, as far as I'm concerned, I never won a Razzie.
Well, they claim you did. Now, one was for
Get them to send me one or two.
I know, I agree. They're too cheap to pop the postage stamp on, obviously, aren't they? But
Yeah, exactly.
a movie called A Night in Heaven, you got to work with the wonderful Lesley Ann Warren. What was that like?
That was a lot of fun.
Mm.
It was interesting because during the filming, she was working with the director, and they were changing a lot of stuff in the movie. And so one of the problems that ended up happening was originally the original, because I starred in the movie, and while we were filming, she was nominated for an Academy Award for Victoria. A lot of things were getting changed, and originally I was a good guy in the movie. I was the star of the movie, and as things evolved, I became this bad guy basically. And my manager kept saying, "There's no movie in history where the bad guy is the star of the show." How you can't do this. Well, obviously the film didn't do very well, but she was a lot of fun, and I had a great time. And boy, we had a love scene in that movie. Whew, that was a really interesting. And I tease her all the time when I see her. I say, "Hey, hey."
When you say that was one heck of a love scene, elaborate, please.
Okay, so I'll go. I'll leave with this. She was a really good sport. The only problem that I had was she had an one of those little ear wick things. It's a
Oh, an earwig, yeah.
yeah, and it's a receiver. So the sound guy in the other room was pumping uh, Marvin Gaye into her head. So when I'm making love, all I hear is Marvin Gaye, and I'm thinking, who is this? Which what am I? You know, so it was a little weird, but it was fascinating because we had to do this whole deal. I, of course, had to get naked again, right? Because I am known for that, and okay, he can do it. So what after my divorce, the first woman that I dated had me. I well went over to, and this was one of the very first times that first or second maybe second or third time that I had dated her, right? And I go over to her place, and she said, "By the way," she said, "Can you explain this?" And she has A Night in Heaven at the love scene on her TV, and frame by frame she's going through, and then she goes, "Oh, what is that?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what is the matter? You people have way too much time." I said, "That's my thumb, of course."
I mean, what has the world come to? It's just crazy. Look, you got a bunch of movies in the works. IMDb seems to keep tabs on everybody. There's one with you and Costas Mandalore. Is that right? A crime drama?
Oh, well, that might be one that I did in Turkey. I do have one coming up called Heavy Hitters, where it's a baseball one, which will be really fun to shoot. I told them I'll pay them to put me in the movie. I want to do a baseball film so bad. So one thing I always wanted to do, because obviously baseball is my passion, while I was young in the business, was to do a baseball movie, and it never ever happened. But my son was a very good. I mean, he's on the California State record list for hitting home runs and things. I mean, he was really good, and he was going to get drafted. And so the part I'm playing is a father of a kid who's getting drafted. And so on my audition, I said, "I'm that dad. I had that kid." So they actually cast me for it. So I'm going to be shooting that at the end of, and then like you said, yes, I'm working on a picture that I'm dying to get off the ground there in Australia, called Lucky Valentine, and
Oh,
keep getting
yes.
really, really close. And
Yeah.
and I want to meet some people and try to put down, because that's just a good commercial film. It's a great family fun, sort of Crocodile Dundee in reverse, but it's just a heart and soul, but a funny movie.
We've chatted about that, and of course, that would be shot in Australia, in fact, in Queensland, which would be really great, Chris.
Oh my God, yeah. And it combines two of the biggest sports on the planet, baseball and cricket. There's over 3.5 billion people fan base to both those sports. So it comes preloaded. and it's all set in Australia, and it's just great. Anyway, it's great.
Look, I got to say, you're an absolute inspiration, Chris, on so many levels, because you've had your challenges. You've been very honest about that. I think you've been sober now, almost 40 years or something. And yet you're one of those people that can go out, be in a party situation, and you don't care if other people are drinking around you. You know, you just let life be as it is.
Yeah. But the one thing that I have since our last conversation that I've always wanted to do it, you have to promise me. You
Yeah.
have to promise me that you will go on a ghost hunt with me in Australia. I know you love that.
And I know you love that too, because you know about ghosts and stuff like that. We do have that insane kind of quirky outlook on life, don't we?
Yes, that's the fun. And people say to me, do you believe in UFOs and Bigfoot and ghosts and all of that?" And I go, "Hell yeah." And they said, "Well, really? Why?" I said, "Because it's much more fun to believe in that stuff than to not believe in it. What's the fun in that?" So
Yeah.
it's the adventure. And you're great because with that last conversation, we have to do it. When I come out there next, we have to do it.
Yeah, of course. And the other thing is too, you're lucky. You've been to the Min Min Lights in Queensland. I've
Yeah.
never been to the Min Min Lights, so we got to go there together. I can just see us sharing a tent. Now, if that doesn't scare the tripe out of you, I'm not sure what would. But think about you, 45 years in Hollywood as a star. You must have met some absolutely amazing people. Is there anyone that springs to mind that just really left an impact on you? Somebody that you admired when you were a kid growing up that never in your wildest dreams would you think you'd be having a drink with or sharing a couch with or whatever?
I did this show called Brooke and I did it called Night of 100 Stars back in the 80s. And it was all about the Actors Guild or Actors Union or something. And it was this big, giant event. And it became this huge thing. And I shared a dressing room with Richard Chamberlain, Paul Newman, Gene Kelly, Grace Kelly, and Jimmy Stewart was there, and then Mickey Rooney. I did a movie with Mickey Rooney. And so these amazing people were sitting with me, and Paul Newman had bought a case of beer, and we were at the Radio City Music Hall, and the beer was out on the ledge of the windowsill, and we were all sitting there, and I'm sitting between Richard Chamberlain, Paul Newman, and Grace Kelly, all having a beer. That was before I stopped. All having a beer, watching the monitor, waiting for our rehearsal time to go do that. So that was one of the greatest all-time moments of my life, was being on stage with all of these. I mean, they had Jimmy Cagney, and I have the poster where everybody hand signed the poster. It's got to be worth a ton of money. But
Is that where you met Elizabeth Taylor? For some reason, I'm thinking you were at Elizabeth Taylor's home or something or other at one point in time.
well, I had a house out in Palm Desert, and my with my manager at the time, and Elizabeth Taylor was going out there and somehow ended up staying at our place and left a nice note and all of this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, she was, I think, going out there in rehab at the time.
Yeah.
And
Look, you're a joy to chat with, and I'm so thrilled that you that Playgirl came and knocking on your door, and that you were the July cover boy, because it's a really great spread. And I think the words, yes, it is about the words in this particular instance, as well as the pictures. I think they really do you a wonderful justice just in summing up what a fabulous person you are.
Well, thank you, Craig. It's very sweet. I really appreciate it. And I love talking to you, and I love you taking the time to do this with me. It's really a great honor, because you're just a tremendous Australian human being, and you're just a really good friend. So I just adore you, and I just can't thank you enough for having this time to do this.
If you like that interview, and we've got loads more coming, you know what you can do to stay constantly up to date. You hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too, because it's lovely to be liked or loved. And I look forward to seeing you for another celebrity drop any tick of the old clock. Un momento. I'll catch you then. And with bells on. Bye.